What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Zachary Reality. We are here for our last trust interview of the day with Julie, who I'm most excited to talk to you about because we have been following each other on TikTok for a while, but you also were a really integral part of this season, going back and forth between the girls and the guys. You were just like very much main character energy. There's a lot to get into. How are you feeling? The show is out. Like, what are your thoughts? And
It's
welcome.
cool to have it finally be out. Thank you as well. Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. There's so many different thoughts to have and feelings to have from it all.
Yeah, I mean, like I just said, we've been following each other on TikTok for probably a couple years. So you are very much a creator. You have a huge following on TikTok. So did you ever expect to go on a reality show, or did this just kind of fall into your lap?
Yeah, so my background is in psychology. So how I got big on TikTok was doing like psychology breakdowns of some like reality stars. Like I did the Kardashians is what like my biggest one was, but I also would do like celebrities and all that stuff. I don't know. I wasn't looking for reality TV until like a casting director reached out to me for a different show. I had made it on as the alternate, and then from that point I was like, oh wait, I'm like that might be kind of cool. Then I kind of forgot about it until this offer like rolled around, and I got asked to interview, and then I made it on the show.
I feel like most content creators would do a show like if it just like happened organically, like it's good for everything.
Yeah. Like I
Like,
wasn't necessarily looking for it, but I was like, it can't hurt to interview. And then like it was a risk for me leaving too. Like I had another job. I have my life going on. So I wasn't like, it was a risk doing it, but I'm thankful I did it.
I remember following you, like you had a big, I don't know if it's a scandal, but a big moment when Kylie Jenner commented on your video and you replied back. And what was that like? Can you give us a little background?
Yeah, so Kylie Jenner, so this is the time of like the Balenciaga scandal. So
Yes.
Balenciaga had put out essentially like alluding to like child pornography. Like it was so gross, so creepy. There were so many things wrong with that ad. And then Kim Kardashian was the representative of Balenciaga, and she's like, I just want to like take a moment to collect my thoughts on this. And I was like, no, like it's just wrong. Just say that it's wrong. And then I made a little joke about because Kylie had finally shown photos of her son, and I was like, oh, Kris Jenner telling her to release like the good photos to kind of cover up this scandal. And Kylie had commented, and she was like, this is why I don't do this. And I responded back. I was like, look, I get that that's frustrating. But then I made a response video. I'm like, here's the thing though. I'm like, you are coming to my page. You're sending so much hate. Like this is something that blew up in the news. All of this energy towards me, I'm no one, could have been directed. You could have just given a statement. But instead of that, you are only going to comment on things when it's directly reflected of you. And I was like, oh, kind of like you did with Astroworld. I'm like, which you still haven't commented on. So it was like it blew up. But I will say, going into this show, I was like, maybe I won't be so affected by the hate comments because
Because of the Kylie thing.
I'm used to it. Like that was on like Entertainment Tonight and all that stuff.
Everywhere. I remember that. I'm like, wow. Because like getting Kylie Jenner's attention, like, she's pretty active on TikTok. She does reply to a decent amount of people, but you kind of really triggered her.
Yeah.
You called her out for how you felt and you were strong in your beliefs. And like, you're right for feeling that way.
Yeah. I did. And I'm like, I still like, I have empathy. Like, I was like, I get that it's probably so frustrating. I'm experiencing on like such a micro level of just like people making assumptions, all of this stuff. But I'm like, there are, sure, she probably has great qualities that aren't so great, as does myself. And at the same time, like, there are things that it's like, there is like right and wrong. Just say it. Just say that this is wrong.
Yeah. So that was like a whole big thing. But then going on the trust, I mean, you're showing your whole personality and you're exposing yourself, on your TikTok, you talk about like, like you said, like psychological, things about celebrities and reality stars. So this time it's really all about you. So I'm sure it was really different and vulnerable going into this experience versus being a content creator online.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, it's a whole different experience because I do feel like I was myself, but at the same time, like they're making a, four-dimensional character, and you have to flatten it down into like a one-dimensional, like there's a certain, I get like how I was typecasted, and how I'm like continuing to be that by the internet. But I like, have a ton of depth to me. So that's frustrating for me to see. But at the same time, like I watch it and I see the things I say, and I'm like, I can see that it's either like funny or I get my reasoning. So I'll never be able to watch it from an unbiased side, or I'll always be able to be, I understand the depth of it. So it's hard for me to like see what other people are seeing and also like understand a lot of the hate, because I'm like, well, you're taking that like out of context, but I'll never be able to watch it with just the context that other people are getting.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, even for me watching the show as someone who's been mutuals with you, like of course I'm rooting for you. So like even so like I maybe would have thought differently of you if I didn't follow you online, and if I just saw the show. And I feel like there was a lot going on with you.
I know.
So we'll get into it. We'll break it down. Team Julie here. I'm happy that you ended up winning. What was your thoughts when you first got to the Dominican Republic? You got to this house, you find out the rules. Like, how much did you know before you got there about what this game would be?
We had no clue what the show was. Like, all they really told me is that it's not a dating show, but they didn't even say it was like competition or there was money. I had a feeling though, because I had gotten asked so much about my past and growing up, and I could tell they were really interested in that. And then also my thoughts on like money and greed and selfishness. And you see this reflected a lot in my character on the show, but it's true. Like, I view the world in a very gray way. Like, if you watch any of my TikToks, like I feel like I'm very good at reflecting on both sides. Like, no, this isn't definite. This is all that makes up on it. So even my thoughts on like greed and selfishness, I'm like, no, it's not like black or white. So I think I am that character in it where you see people that are very definite, like Brian. It's like, no, this is right, this is wrong. And then you have more people that are like, whatever, I'm willing to cut people out. And I toe the gray.
Yeah, you did the whole time, which was what made your character so interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I do feel like that's indicative of myself. So I had maybe a feeling though that it was going to be a competition, and I share a little bit about my background on the show. But yeah, like I come from nothing, survival mode, all of that. So when I was in the hotel the night before, I really had to be like, I am turning off my empathetic, compassionate side. Like, I'm going survival mode, Julie. And I'm like, I don't even need to think. I don't watch reality TV. Like, I was watching some interviews that she's done. She's like, I'm a huge Big Brother fan, and I was all strategy. For me, all I had to do was like turn off my brain. Like, I'm going instinct mode because I know how to survive. I trust in my abilities so deeply to like, I have very high competence and confidence in my ability to just like survive and be thrown in a situation like that. So I'm like, I'm going purely off instinct, turn off thinking about other people, because that can serve me in the real world and with my friends and all of that. And I'm like, I do need this. I need this money. Like, I quit my job for it. I had just gotten a new job too. And I like had a 10K signing bonus that I would have gotten after like month 3. And it was like 6 days before my 10K signing bonus. So I was like,
you need to make more than 10K.
Yeah. I'm like, I have nothing to like go back to. I don't have a job. I don't have family. I need this money. So I'm like, you turn off that brain. And I had a feeling that I was like, because I am very, like, I do have a big heart. And you kind of see that, like, eventually we get to the end or halfway through. And I was like, I can't like vote out like Brian and Gasper. Like,
yeah, I think we definitely saw that. And I was going to ask like what your goal was coming into it. And, you said to make as much money as possible. And then when did that kind of start to change where you were like, you know what, I care about the group. I want as many of us to win as possible.
Yeah, right away. The girls came in like guns a-blazing. And I was happy with that. I'm like, thank God, like Winnie really, I remember we were having that conversation. It's like, oh, do we vote? Do we not? If we do, it's going to like shake things up. And Winnie's like, let's get this party started. And I'm thankful for her for that, because like we did. And that needed to happen. And we ended up benefiting from that. But it was definitely like, then, you start to see the conflict between like myself and the girls, primarily because like my relationship with Jake. There were times where like the girls and I, we were having fun, like, and it was kind of like fun being in that like powerful, like snipers from the side, we're making things move. But also like there was a lot of just like, it stayed strategy too long. And you hear me say that in our fight. I'm like, when he keeps talking about like strategy and numbers, and I'm like, but these are also like people. And I was realizing, like, especially with my relationship with Brian, and I think it's interesting on the show, they make it look like, oh, it's because I'm so in love with Jake and I'm just so obsessed with him. And that's why I like need to change. But it was like Brian and I had a whole storyline that didn't really like make it. I was in foster care. He was adopting a child who was in foster care. Like, to me, he was the one that really softened me up. And it was so different. Like, you see the conflict between Bryce and I, and it's like, no, that relationship would never have softened me up, because I'm like, but you don't get it. And I would see some of the guys, even like Jake, and he's like, oh, we're a family, and we're going to make it in black and white, right and wrong. And I was like, no, you guys are like stupid. And I was like, and it comes from a privileged mindset for you to be able to trust, for you to be able to see the world in black and white, because you haven't, like, is it because you haven't been exposed to this many levels of gray? But then speaking of Brian, like Brian had a lot of the same trauma that I had. And I was like, damn, Brian has also gone through it, and he chooses to see people in a better way. And I have made my own choice of like to not trust and to see people in like, especially in this scenario. And there's been part of that serves me, like that comes from survival mode. That part of that is beneficial. And on the other side, like when I was with Brian, I was like, oh, I'm like loved and accepted. And this feels very like an unconditional caring for. And that was the real split between the girls' alliance. Like, let's just say for this example, like, what if I was like head over heels with him, which is not how it really looks.
Yeah. We'll get to it.
Yeah, I was. I'm like, my girlfriends do not speak to me that way. Like,
yeah,
just like the judgment, and that even if I was, but it was like there was no judgment for even the true bad things that I did in the house, like taking the money and like voting people out and all of that. But it was like there was so much judgment for my decisions, and I just like felt so like unconditionally accepted by Brian, that I was like, I will never vote him out. And that's where like came down to is when he had taken the offer and it was like someone has to go home, and I was like, she had asked me too, like, will you vote for like Brian and Gasper? And I was like, no. So then then the whole thing was like, but Jake doesn't even like you, da da da. And
yeah. That's really interesting. I had chills during part of that. I think that's great. Like you really came into this experience with like a mission, and then you softened and, you know, got to know people over time. And that truly was what the game was about. It was not always about greed, but it was about sharing and like building relationships. So
well, that's the other thing is like, we also didn't know that the title was going to be like a game of greed. To me, it was always about like trust, like the trust. And I'm like, here's the thing, in the beginning, I do not trust you guys. Like, Joel's is a nice guy. We thought he was lying. He was lying, sloppy gameplay, but I'm like, I don't trust you. So I wasn't able to like soften up until I got to the end. And I was like, I actually do trust these guys. At the very end, those 5 people, like I still had my fear, but I'm like, I trust you enough to share this money. It wasn't even about like, I'm so greedy and I need this. I'm like, no, I trust that you're not going to vote me out.
Did you know Tolu took that 25K?
I don't know. I assumed it was her. I was mostly worried. I was like, they're gonna think it's me.
Yeah, I thoued they would think that too, but who else would it be? Because the guys were not doing that.
Well, so afterwards, like right away, I was like, did you take the money to Tolu? And she had said no. And and then she like confessed the next morning.
Okay.
But when she had said no, I was like, maybe Jake took it, because like I was so confused. I didn't know, because Tolu flat out told me that she didn't. So I was so confused, because I was like, I know I didn't, but I was mostly worried that people were going to think it was me who took it.
I don't blame her for taking the money. Like you had an extra 15K, right. Brian had an extra 30K. That was her last chance to make extra money from the pot, and half the people of the 5 were already making extra money. So I don't blame her for that. I just think it was a little shady to lie about it at the end, especially when everyone already had their votes cast in the envelope. Like that was her chance to explain it.
On the cliff, she should have said it. I understand like celebrating with me after, because it's like, yeah, they would have voted her out if they would have known she would have taken it. The only other thing I'll say in this, because I've seen, and I mean, like Tolu and I are close. We'll talk about it. But just because I just read something and she's like, you know, they weren't mad at Julie for taking the 15, and they were mad at me. But I do think the timing is a little different too, because I also wanted to take the money, but I was at that point, your relationships are stronger. So yes, when I took the 15, I was still like, I don't trust you guys. And that could have been very well like how she still felt. But I think that was why why the rest of them were like, what the fuck? And they understood mine more so, is because like I did come clean. I was like, look, in the beginning, I was totally manipulating you. I was playing a game, all this stuff. Like I took the money, came clean. I'm like, but this is very genuine for me now. I think why they're upset is because Tolu was like, yes, I also was playing a game, I manipulated, but it's also genuine for me. But obviously, like that wasn't fully true, because she didn't feel fully safe. And I mean, but I understand good gameplay.
Well, what did you think of Gasper voting out Lindsay? Like, did you want Lindsay to be the top 5? Because that's kind of, it didn't seem like Tolu, you know, it didn't seem like she was going to make it to that alliance.
It's such a good question. And it's like, it really messed me up. And I'm still like a little messed up about it, because the girl fight was worse than what they showed. Like they kicked me out of my room. They told me I couldn't stay there. Even before that, like they would, and we've talked about it since, but this is just the reality of it. So when everyone's like, Julie's not a girl's girl, she like jumped ship. It's also like, I was being iced out in the mornings. There were times where like I came back at night, if I was just like sitting down talking to Jake, they'd be like, unmic me, so they wouldn't have to like talk to me. So there was a lot of like just mean girl things. And like, I've gone through that stuff before. But in a house, when can you trust this person? Are they going to get upset with me and make a decision that would change my life in a negative way? I'm going to align with someone who I do fully trust. And there were so many things that broke. Once again, like for me, the game was less about greed, it was about trust. I'm like, they did so many things that broke down my trust.
Mhm.
So when they really like, I felt turned their backs on me, but they also felt like I turned my back on them. They're allowed to think that, to have that be their truth. Lindsay was there for me. Like that was my room. I couldn't even go in and like get ready because it felt so hostile. So you even see me, like I was taking my makeup and like, I'm like, can I like sit in here? So in that regard, like Lindsay was a really good friend to me. And I felt like she was there for me when the girls weren't. But then Lindsay had also told me when I came back from the day trip with Brian, she was like, the girl said they're going to vote you out. You don't know who to believe. Still to this day, I don't know it's true because I have asked Winnie and Tolu. They said that that's not true, but that is what I was told in a house of like paranoia. And you just like, he said, she said, that didn't make it on camera. So I don't know. So I just didn't know who to like trust, but I knew Lindsay was being a lot nicer to me.
Yeah.
The whole fight goes down. I don't end up voting for or against. I kind of keep neutral. At that point, I was like, this is between them. Like Tolu has burned a lot of bridges fighting for Winnie in the house. I was like, that's between y'all. However, after that vote, after Lindsay went home, I was told by the boys that Lindsay had, I guess after Winnie went, she was like, okay, what's the next move? What's the next strategy? Like, is Julie next? And they were like, what? Like, and then that's what I was told, that when they realized that she was like, that she had to go because they like, she was coming for me and her and I were friends. Again, I've never been like confirmed that. That's what I was told. And so that really made me be like, oh, if I would have known that, I would have voted her out in 1 second, but I didn't know. So it's always been a bit of contention too, even between like Tolu and I's friendship. Cause she's like, you didn't vote to protect me. And Lindsay was like going to vote you out. And I was like, fuck, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think it makes perfect sense why you switched, sides and why you really bonded with the guys over time. Were you allowed to just like change rooms though, if you were so uncomfortable? Like, especially when somebody else went home, you can't just go into their bed, Simone's bed.
They blocked the room. You couldn't even go in like their bath. They allowed me one time because they like had to stop filming because the fight got so bad between the girls and I. Winnie had also gone to Jake and was like, just try to blast me, and was all like, Julia's an awful person, she's a gold digger, all these things, she's been playing you. But I already had a feeling from the conversation that Lindsay had tipped me off that they were going to turn against me. And I came clean a lot already about like Jake. Like I pretty much pulled him aside. I was like, look, I'm gonna tell you what's going on. And so that didn't make it to camera, but there was one time, like, so the fight was so bad and I was like, I literally don't feel like safe in this house. And they're like, you can go into like Joelle's and Simone's room and just like do your makeup there. And I remember like I was like crying and like talking myself up in the mirror, and I was like, you know what? I've been in pageants. I live in Austin, Texas. Like people are crazy here. I've gone through so many girl fights, all this stuff. I'm like, I can do this. Like I can do this. But that was the only time, like, because it was so bad. But otherwise, the rooms were closed off after people left, and they're like, you can't like sleep in these beds. They wanted to make it like you either have to figure it out or.
Yeah, and that's fair, I think, as like a producer, to really let everyone just like solve their problems if they have them, because that's the point of the show. We watch reality TV because we want to see resolution, but we want to see conflict and then resolution. Or if there can't be resolution, then you vote them off, and that's how it is. Last question on Tolu and Winnie. Like, you just met up with them, right, in Los Angeles. It's been a while since the show. Where do you kind of stand on those friendships now?
Tolu and I are super close. Like, we talk all the time. We've both been like at the forefront of the hate. People have really been coming for us. So I've been so thankful to like have her friendship and just be able to lean on each other. We talk all of the time. We're very close. Winnie did like come up to me in LA, and she was like, look, we need to like talk about some of this stuff. Like, she didn't really understand. She's like, why would you say like I was controlling you? That's not when I was like, because I felt like I had to either do what you want or you would be mad at me. And like my real friends aren't like that. And she was like, okay, I understand. And then we talked about like the Jake stuff. And I was like, this is where I was coming from. And I was like, and it did make me mad. I'm like, no matter what I said, and like you guys just didn't believe me. You wanted so bad to be like, she's being played and blinded. I'm like, that's not how
that's how it was.
Like, or how the world works. I'm like, just in any scenario on the show or not, I'm like, I don't fall for people very easily. So anyways, I feel like Winnie and I got to a place where it's like, we believe it differently. I think we still see things differently, but I'm cool with Winnie. I'm good with her. I don't have animosity or anything like that.
Yeah. And I'm sure just like watching the show back brings all the emotions back. So, you just kind of have to let it simmer for a minute. And I'm sure, you'll all be grateful you shared this experience together. Like at the end of the day, hopefully. There seems to be some conflicts online, but let's move on to Jake. So I love a showmance. I think it makes a reality show really great. And what we saw was a natural progression between the two of you throughout the first episode, all the way till the end when you ended up finally kissing and you even did the confessional together, which I thought was so cute. What was your feelings for him in the house like? Did you really have genuine feelings? Were you playing him? You know, how did you feel?
Yeah. In the beginning, I was definitely like, perfect. Like, it doesn't hurt to flirt. Also, you kind of get bored in the house. You don't have anything else to do. I'm sorry. Like, if you ever been on a party and you're like, it's way better if there's someone there to flirt with.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm having a good time. My background's in psychology. I'm very well aware of people's implicit biases and how attraction can cloud that. Like, there's a halo effect that you will have if you are attracted to someone. And you see that very much play out because I was part of the first people that were voting people out. And Jake, after those votes, he'd be like, I don't trust anyone in the house. You're the only one I trust. Like, I think it's the girls who are voting, like Winnie and Tolu who are voting. And I would also have the girls' backs though. And I'd be like, no, it's not. Like, I don't know. There's a different snake in the house. Like, those are my girls. We share a room together. They would have told me if they were dating. So that was the frustrating part that I felt with Winnie and Tolu. I'm like, it was to their advantage because the men were up in arms. They're like, we're going to find out who voted Joelle's out.
You were protecting them, and maybe they didn't know that because you were compartmentalizing the connection you had with Jake that was like separate, the flirtation you had with him, and maybe they just didn't know that or didn't trust you.
Yeah. And so, but I also felt like I was a reason, like they stayed in the house. And I'm like, and at the end, I feel like I for sure was the reason why Tolu made it to the end because I always did have their backs. Like, if Jake trusted me a lot, like he respected my opinion. I don't know why on the show they made it look so like one-sided. I guess it's because it gives it kind of like a hook on the storyline of like, is Julie being played? But it's not like hard to be liked as I could have, I feel like just stood there and just been a pretty girl in the house. Like I'm not special for that. And but it's not hard. And that's why the thing they're like, you're falling for him. He's playing you. Like, well, who's there to play? Like, is he cheating on me in the house with who? Like,
I'm not with Mama J.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get a ring at the end of this. I don't need him, I just need him not to vote me out. And I need him to believe that I'm not voting because that would make me get out of the house if they knew we were voting for Joelle's. So it definitely was like strategic, but we always did have like the chemistry was real. Like I didn't have to fake the chemistry. I think you can't always like control who you have chemistry with. And Jake and I did have real chemistry, but I would always say, even in the house, like, I don't think we have compatibility and chemistry doesn't equal compatibility. I was always asked by like producers, by like, not more so like the guys in the house of like, why aren't you moving things forward with Jake? And that's also been the frustrating thing is like, essentially like slut shaming that I experienced inside the house, the slut shaming that I'm experiencing like on the internet. Like Jake and I had a very innocent relationship. We flirted, but we also made it we lived together for a month and made it to the end and we kissed on the last episode.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And you so, like, really made him wait. He was trying to kiss you for a while.
Yeah, and everyone's like, she's obsessed with him. He don't want her. I'm like, where? In what world? In what reality do you think that's real? Like, but
so how was the kiss?
I don't know. It's awkward. There's a camera in your face and it's hot. And I don't know. You do forget that the cameras are like there after a while, but that was like a moment where I remember being very like, like there's a camera in my face.
Like I'm gonna have to relive this and watch this back.
Yeah.
But it was great TV, and I think it added a different layer to this competition show, like seeing your showmance and seeing it evolve. Even if it was, manufactured in some way, I still felt like along for the ride.
Yeah, it was both. That was like, there was benefit to having a relationship with Jake. It also caused like a whole lot of controversy. So maybe not always beneficial, but I made it to the end. There's different factors you would take into account when you're like, do I want a relationship with this person long-term? That would look very different. Like, should I flirt with this person and like us protect each other in the house till the end? Those are different conversations. And I think the internet and even people inside the house are getting those very messed up.
Can we have the scoop here of what happened after? Like, did you guys continue to date? Are you dating now? Where do you guys stand?
Jake and I are not together. Yeah. Our beliefs are very different. And I wouldn't say like, not only are they different, like he believes in things I adamantly stand against, and probably vice versa. So because of that, like we just won't ever have a romantic relationship. It does make it hard because like right away after the show, like you can't tell anyone. And so in some ways, like you feel very alone and having that experience. So like I was thankful. There have been times I've been very thankful for him. That's like we experienced the same things. Like Jake treated me great. You know, like he was very like charming, charismatic. He was good to me. He protected me. However, that doesn't like negate the things that I do see on his social media. It makes it confusing for me because I'm like, I kind of have like two different experiences of a person. So yeah.
Are you guys still friends? Friendly?
Yeah, we're
Just chill.
I'm not trying to
Indifferent.
war.
Yeah.
You know, we talked like before the show came out, and pretty much like after the show, we talked a lot more, and it was kind of this moment of would we pursue things? I just like saw more of, you know, his like
Who he
personality.
is, and it just didn't mesh up with yours.
Yeah, and I really like so I really distanced myself after that. And we didn't talk for months. And then before the show, he like called, he was like, can we like talk? And he had called me, he's like, I don't really like fully understand why you pulled away. And I was like, I just some of this is pretty messy. So and he was kind of like, can we just like get on a good like page with each other? Like it was a very respectful conversation. Like, can we like get on the same page with this and like just be good? And we cleared the air on some stuff. Like, oh,
Yeah. I mean, his secret was that he slept with 150 people. I mean, that's got to turn you off.
we had a big fight about it on the show, and I'm surprised it didn't like make it to air because number one, we blamed Juelz for it. Sorry, Juelz. And then like I was talking to Jake about it, and he like came clean to me, and I was like, I'm literally sick to my stomach. I'm like, this is disgusting. And like I like walked away, and then the like producers had me, and they had me do it in my casting interview. And I pretty much said, I was like, well, you can't say you're like morally superior and you toe this high ground, you're filled with integrity. I'm like, to have that many partners, I'm like, there's a lot of exploitiveness in that. I'm assuming there's lying in it. It's dehumanizing to the other people on the other side. And I've said all these things to him, and he's like, no, it's not like that. His own reasonings. But it was like a big thing. And yeah.
What was your secret? Did you ever say?
Okay, it was the scale, and it's gotten
yes.
out of context because that's not how it went down, and it's not how I said it.
Yeah.
So we didn't pick our own secrets. They were pretty much pulled from like when you're doing the casting interviews, which also if you're doing a casting interview, you're a little bit of a nut. Like you're kind of like doing little stand-up bits and all of that. So however, the secret thing came from I was talking about like the party, like being in a city and these like upper class circles and how I have very different experiences. I grew up in a trailer park. I've been homeless. I was in foster care. And now I'm in these like very high, like very wealthy, higher class circles. My eyes are wide open. And I'm like, some of the shit I see, I'm like, this is insane. And I talked about it. I was like, you know, in these circles, like a man's value is in his net worth and a woman's value is in how she looks. And it was like one time I was at this party and I was like, there was a scale outside of the door. They weren't weighing people. That never happened. There people like, she goes to restaurants, she supports this. It's not my scale, not my party. But I saw it and I was like, and it was symbolic of a woman's worth inside of these circles. However, I went on to say, I'm like, it is something that all women are subjected to of like, in some ways we will benefit if we follow a beauty standard. We benefit if we follow these very messed up patriarchal ideals. Like that is our one small pocket where we can maybe move ahead. However, it's wrong. And so you're faced with this conflict of like, do I benefit in this? And something that's very messed up. But regardless if it's a scale outside the party, there are so many different aspects where women, we have to come up with this in a messed up system that we did not create, that we have to follow the rules of, even if we're like, I hate these rules, they're wrong. In so many ways, they demean me and I don't get ahead because of them. And there are small pockets where I've like benefited in that. And that's like, I said all of that in my first interview, all of that got cut out. So again, it's like all of my depth, all of who I am, like speaking about morality and being like, this that are so deeply wrong, all of that got cut out. And it's like, I go to parties where you have to weigh in. And so I've gotten so much hate from that secret. And people like have just placed it out as like, I support it, as I'm the one doing it, as I like think it's a great thing. And none of that's true. I was actually surprised when they put that secret in there. Didn't even think it was mine at first. I was like, that's crazy. And I was like, oh wait, that probably came from the story that I told.
Yeah. Maybe they wanted to like archetype you as like the hot, dumb girl, but it didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they do have to, and you have to be some type of typecast. And that's also why in the lineup game, like I fought really hard to be number one for most intelligent, which I'm also getting backlash for. Very interesting though that like Jake isn't getting backlash for putting himself in the front of the line as we see. Like all these systems like reach so far beyond like myself of there are so many themes of like racism, misogyny, sexism, implicit biases that are all at work. And I knew this while playing the game. So part of the reason why I was standing up during that game was because I could tell how I was being typecasted, which I don't think it really did me any favors to do that, because now people are like, oh, she is really dumb. She doesn't have self-awareness, and are just taking that and running. But I do know I'm very intelligent, like both socially, like my IQ, my EQ, it's just facts.
No, I believe it. I mean, I think that, you know, people need to follow you on TikTok, Instagram to kind of see your takes and see how you look at the world, because there is a lot to learn from you. And I really appreciate all of your perspectives that you shared here today, that you shared on the show, and that you share online. So I'm really glad that you came on here to talk about it and explain, you know, some of the misconceptions.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there's so much, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It keeps going. How deep does the rabbit hole go?
I've been asking everyone this. What do you think season 2 of The Trust could or would look like? What changes would you want to the rules? Lindsay said something interesting. She said that instead of betting 25,000 at the end, which Tolu did, they should put it all the way to the top and see how much someone tries to take. And then maybe there could have been an upset.
I know. I really wonder how even changing the dollar amount would have, I don't know how it would have changed. Like if we would have been like, okay, that's enough money, or if it would have made us want more money. It's like 250 is like, I assume it's for budgeting reasons, but also I can see how there's probably a lot of like psychology with that number and the amount of people we're splitting it with. So that would be interesting. Yeah, Lindsay has really good takes, by the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes Lindsay, like, so she really hits it on the nail on the head sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, I just think even changing just the people, it could make it a totally different show. I talked to the writers afterwards. They came up to us and they had said, number one, like at day one, came in there. I was like, you know, we've done psychological like experiments like this. And people are like, oh yeah, like what? And I was like, well, they've like, literally it's a thought experiment of what would happen if you put people in paradise, or like give people this utopia. And if would people always be their own demise? And the writers came up to me after the show and they're like, when you said that, we were in the control room, like, oh shit, she figured it out in like 6 minutes. And like, we built the show for 6 years. They're like, we like played this around a round table for 6 years, like doing different things. And like, we could have never predicted how it came out. And they're like, because we couldn't predict the relationships between people. And they said like some of the games, it was supposed to be like, I guess the lineup game was not even supposed to be like inflammatory. And that was one of the like biggest ones, where some, they thought it would be like more, some they thought it would be less. So I think the writers are doing like a great job. As much as different as we are, and you're seeing a lot of the fallout of it, that I think is what it was designed to do. Like someone like Bryce and someone like myself was meant to be casted. So even if I'm like, you know, he doesn't deserve to be there, like actually it's the perfect, like there shouldn't have been all like, you know, girls from the trailer park, like fighting to make a better life for themselves in there. Like that's the perfect casting. Like Jake is like all American, blonde hair, blue eyed, like that's perfect for like, contrast was beautiful, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I even appreciated Bryce's perspective, you know, that he was there for the experience. I think that added a different layer, because usually we see people who are there just to win or just to play the game, but this game didn't exist. So like, how do you know you want to play it? So I think it was really interesting. I gave it a little bit of flack at first because I thought there should have been more people on the show. 11 is such a small cast, but I think it really worked out the way it was supposed to. How much money did you end up taking away?
I think it was like 63,000.
Yeah, because you had the 15K plus the 48.6.
Yeah.
So you're satisfied, right? Like you left a winner, you feel?
Yeah, I would love more money, but I am happy with it. Yeah.
I mean, considering like you knew you were going to share it with multiple people, I feel like that's a pretty decent amount of money to leave with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like, I've talked to the girls, like Tolu and I just kind of talking. She's like, I don't know. Like, I still think like if pretty much like if I wouldn't have Jake, then she's like, it could have been like, what if it was like the three of us? The producers would have never let it be that clean. Like, that's what I think people should look out for in a season 2. If you're really like, okay, my people are going to get to the end, there would be hard choices. Like, what if Winnie's decision was that she went into the vault? She would not have told us if it was only me, Tolu, and her left. She probably would have gone to one person and been like, Julie needs to go home. I'm not even going to tell her I took an offer where someone has to go home. It's you and I at the end. Like something like that could have easily happened. So there's a lot of like, this should have happened, or what if, but they're going to make it where like you have to make really hard decisions. And even someone like Brian, he's like, I'll never take the money. It's like, he's pretty much putting his decision was like, well, yes, you will.
Well, now that there was a season 1, like this is like with every show, like The Circle, whatever, like season 2, people watch the first season. There's always going to be twists, and you know, you just never know what you can expect. Last question about the show. I really was fascinated by the bridge. I felt like you spent a lot of time there reflecting, sharing intimate moments. What was that bridge like by the water?
Wait, what bridge?
Remember that, like by the water by the cliff, it was like, it wasn't a bridge. It was just by the cliff. It was like the ropes. It was like the little walkway.
Oh, with like Jake?
Yeah, I felt like that was like such an intimate place for everybody. Like everyone would look out the water and just like, I don't know, it just
I think they
seemed
had us
special.
go there, like they'd be like, grab this person for a conversation, or if we want it, because it was away from everyone, like you couldn't really hear. Like we don't get to leave the house. We are sequestered inside. So I think that was just a place to kind of hide out from people.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the show or what you took away from this experience or what you really want the fans to know about you or just the show in general?
I think people will benefit a lot more if you can take the parts of the show that do trigger you, that make you upset, and instead of like directing it at the cast, know that like this can be a really interesting discussion piece for these issues of like sexism, racism, misogyny, implicit biases, all how people see this. Like a lot of the cast were getting hate for it, and it's like, let us be these like talking pieces, because these issues span far beyond us. Like if you're going to be upset with me, like the scale thing, it's like, how about let's talk about the fact that like
there is a scale to begin with.
There's that to begin with, or even like look at the hate that Tolu and I are experiencing at such a more massive level, and being hated by other women, being hated by men, instead of labeling me as like not a girl's girl or you're so against women. It's like, well, what are you doing? Like all of these themes are so much bigger than even what happened inside the show. And if we can look at that, like it's a really great show for that reason. It goes deeper than other reality shows in that, because these really tough and hard themes do exist inside of it. I think people are missing like a massive opportunity, and they're trying to make it be like other reality shows and it's just cattiness, but it could be a really like cool thing. And I think people are like taking a lot of that away with just the hate and trying to make everyone be like this one-dimensional thing. And I'm seeing like a lot more issues reflected in society and how far we haven't come, seeing the hate of the show, not even what happened inside the show.
It will open up a lot of conversations. So
yeah,
I
have
think that's
the
great.
hard conversations, but like it doesn't need to be at the hands of like, this person's annoying, I hate this person. Yeah.
Conversations are like, those hard conversations are hard, but like you feel so much better after them and you learn and grow from them. So we just want to encourage everyone to do it.
Yeah.
Would you do Perfect Match?
I would.
Okay.
I think they should. No.
Yeah, I think that is like the next show on the roster, hopefully in the next few months. So I'm interested to see if anybody from this cast went to Perfect Match. Where can everybody follow you online? Instagram, TikTok, plug it all away.
Yes, follow me on my Instagram is Julie Theis Official. You can follow me on TikTok at Julie Theis. You can follow me. I just got Snapchat. It's Julie Lynn Theis. For some reason, I could not get like one username for all of them.
Yeah, I know. I got Zachary Reality and that's it.
Jealous.
Everywhere you need to go. Well, thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you, Zach. It was so good talking with you.
I know.